through. I have no idea, but I think it's certain.
Councillors, ladies and gentlemen, please be outstanding for the Mayor, City of Clarence, Councillor Brendan Blomley.
Well, good evening and welcome all. Before proceeding, I pay my respects to the Wimmera people as the traditional and original custodians of the lands on which we meet, and I acknowledge the continuing connection of the Tasmanian Aboriginal people to the skies, to the land and to the waterways. I pay respect to elders past and present. Before we commence with tonight's council meeting, please let us all pause for a quiet moment of reflection and respect. Thank you, councillors. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Well, good evening and welcome to the Clarence City Council meeting of Monday, the 8th of September 2025. This meeting is being broadcast live on YouTube, and what is said in this meeting is not protected by privilege, and there is a link to the agenda papers on Council's website. Item number 2 is apologies. Councillor Chong has a leave of absence and Councillor Walker is an apology. Other than that, all other 10 of us are here. Item 3, declarations of interest of councillors or a close associate. Are there any declarations? Right, there being none, we now head into our omnibus items. Item 4.1, confirmation of the minutes. The minutes of the council meeting held on the 18th of August 2025 have been circulated. Are there any issues arising? There being none, we now move on to 4.2.1, the Mayor's Diary. That's been circulated from the 19th of August through to today, the 8th of September 2025. I also acknowledge and thank the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Hume for representing me at different events during that time as well. I would particularly like to mention the 2025 Clarence Prize official opening and winner announcement that occurred on Saturday evening in the Rosny Barn. The 15 pieces on display represent the very best of Australian furniture design. These pieces could just as easily be seen in Milan or London, but they're here in the city of Clarence, and frankly, that's something I'm extraordinarily proud of. Along with the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Chong, it was an absolute delight to be part of what was a truly first-rate event. And for those that may have read the coverage in the Tas Weekend magazine or in the Sunday Tasmanian, you'd be aware that this award, initiated and funded by the City of Clarence, is more than holding its own on the world stage in terms of furniture design. Hosting an award of this calibre and attracting Australia's leading designers to showcase their work in Clarence not only strengthens our city's reputation as a place of culture and creativity, but brings economic benefits through visitation, hospitality and media coverage. And since Saturday, I've received, as I know Councillor Kennedy has as well, numerous emails of appreciation for this award, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Ms Coburn and her amazing team on delivering another outstanding event. It really is first class, so thank you. Colleagues, as outlined in my diary, last week I attended the 2025 Australian Mayor's Summit Against Anti-Semitism at the invitation of Gold Coast Mayor Tom Tate. The reason for my attending this summit, alongside 300 other local government and community leaders from around the country, is really quite simple. It sends a powerful message that in our community, here in the city of Clarence, that there is no place for hate, and that the safety, dignity and inclusion of all residents, including Jewish Australians, is a shared responsibility. Every citizen of this country, no matter where they were born, no matter their race, their creed, the colour of their skin, their sexuality or their age, they have an absolute and unconditional right to be here and to participate fully in all aspects of our liberal democratic society. Sadly, the rise in anti-Semitism in Australia is real and it is rising. This has been acknowledged by both the federal government and the opposition and recognised by councils and communities across the country. Recent incidents, including threats, assaults and attacks on places of worship, underline the importance of proactive leadership. However, in accepting the invitation, I did not expect to be pressured not to attend. I did not expect to be harassed when I decided to do so. I did not expect to be told that there was something improper with me learning about anti-Semitism. I did not expect to be the subject to security checking before entering the venue. I did not expect to face protesters outside the hotel. I did not expect to be yelled at. I did not expect to be filmed and my photograph taken by the protesters. I did not expect to be told that I'm a criminal, and I did not expect to be told that I was killing babies. I did not expect to see significant police presence and to be so very grateful for the security provided. Now, trying to shut down a discussion about how to combat Jewish hatred, that is anti-Semitism writ large. And frankly, the irony is so very sad, and I hope we can all agree there ought to be no place for that sort of behaviour in our country. There should be no home for hatred in Australia. As elected representatives of local government, we are in a unique and special position of being able to affect change where it matters, on the ground. If we are to protect the Australian way of life, the fabled mateship, the equality of treatment and of opportunity, the fair go for all, then we must have that change. In March of this year, I was proud that the City of Clarence, alongside the other 5 Greater Hobart councils of Brighton, Hobart, Glenorchy, Kingborough and Sorell, launched the We Stand Against Racism campaign. Colleagues, I'm sure we can all agree that racism, in all its forms, has no place in our society, and I am extraordinarily proud of the work our councils are doing to send a clear message that we will not tolerate racial vilification. Our multiculturalism is absolutely something that we should be celebrated. It is such an integral piece that makes up the rich tapestry of our communities. A Tasmania that truly embraces our diversity will be a state that is welcoming for all, strong and prosperous. Together we can, and we must, shape a more inclusive and respectful future, starting right here in our local community. Colleagues, as some of you are aware, Miss Courtney Beswick of the Clifton Beach Surf Lifesaving Club was recently named Coach of the Year at the Surf Lifesaving Tasmanian Awards for Excellence. And on behalf of the City, I wrote to congratulate Ms Beswick on her most recent award and thank her for her amazing service. And I table a copy of that correspondence. I also recently received a letter of thanks from Mr Brendan Rogers, the President of the Lindisfarne Junior Football Club. Mr Rogers writes, "Good afternoon, Brendan. On behalf of the Lindisfarne Junior Football Club, I'd like to thank you for your work in implementing a new pedestrian access gate between Park Road and our facilities at Anzac Park. Our members and community will certainly appreciate this." And I table a copy of that correspondence and particularly thank, well, not Mr Graham, but Miss Moore and her team for delivering that solution. So thank you very much. I'd also like to say that I was delighted to learn that Mr John Bastick of Howrah was recently awarded the Tasmanian Shedder of the Year 2025 at the recent Tasmanian Men's Shed Annual General Meeting. John was one of the inaugural members of the Howrah Men's Shed and has played an active role over the past decade. He's been the backbone of the shed, and his strong and effective advocacy for mental health and the positive impact this has had on the lives of so many cannot be overstated. I wrote to congratulate Mr Bastick on his award and thank him on behalf of a grateful community for his many years of tireless service, and I table a copy of that correspondence. Colleagues, the annual general meeting of the South East Regional Development Association, SERDA, occurred on the 28th of August. I can report that Tasman Mayor Rod McDonald has been re-elected as President and I continue as Vice President. Following our strategic planning workshop facilitated by KPMG, we also adopted our strategic plan for 2025 to 2030. I'll table a copy of that. Moving now on to 4.3, Council Workshops, as listed in the agenda. 4.4, tabling of petitions. CEO, are there any petitions this evening?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. 4.5, reports from outside bodies. Councillor Walker's not here tonight to provide a report on the Copping Refuse Disposal Site Joint Authority. Anything on Tasway South, Councillor Warren? Thank you. On Tas Water Corporation, I can report that as a member of the Board Selection Committee that we've shortlisted 5 candidates for the director position, and we'll be conducting those interviews this Thursday in Launceston, and I'll obviously have more to report in due course. And there's nothing to report on the Greater Hobart Committee. We move now on to reports from Council and special committees and other representative bodies. The Sustainability Advisory Committee is listed in the agenda. Are there any other reports for tabling? All right, there being none, we now move on to the weekly briefing reports, 4.6. The weekly briefing reports of the 18th and 25th of August and the 1st of September 2025 have been circulated to councillors. Are there any matters arising? Councillor James.
Thank you. The first I'd draw Council's attention to is the 25th of August 25, Beach Road and Malana Road intersection upgrade. It refers to, in the second paragraph, a request for quotation is currently being finalised, seeking a consultant to deliver the following two components of work: design of the roundabout upgrade and access and recommend safety improvements along the Malana Road, Beach Road and Begonia Road. My question is that I was under the impression that design work would be done in-house or in conjunction with a consultant, external. Is that not the case? And now it would appear that there is no in-house design engineer available to do this work, and therefore we have to go to external quotation and a consultant.
Thank you, Councillor James. Ms Moore?
The work was always going to go out to external design. The preliminary or concept designs that we based our estimates on were done by GHD engineers a number of years ago, and it's a fairly complex intersection, so the intention has always been to go to external designers for that project.
Thank you, Ms Moore. Councillor James?
Thank you. The second is in relation to the 1st of September weekly briefing report, and it refers to Clarence Tracks and Trails Accessibility Audit Progress Update. I congratulate the move by the Disability Access and Inclusion Working Group to access specific Clarence tracks and trails for accessibility. It appears, and I'm fully supportive of those tracks and trails on the audit list: Lauderdale Wetland Circuit, the Natone Hill Circuit, Clarence Foreshore Trail, Clarence Foreshore Trail, Bellreeve Boardwalk to Bellreeve Beach, the Rosny Hill Circuit and Mortimer Bay Reserve Circuit. Is it the intent of the Chair to actually seek comment from the Tracks and Trails Working Group in relation to this? Because we have discussed on a number of occasions about the priority listing of these works, and therefore I would have thought that it would have been appropriate for us to be sort of involved as a working group in some of the feedback that's required in relation to this.
Right, thank you, Councillor James. Ms Coburn, are you able to shed any light or provide a response, please?
Through you, Mayor, yes, I'll certainly refer that back to our working group coordinator to link in with Track and Trails Working Group, just to see if you've got any input that you'd like to make on that.
Thank you very much.
That's it, Councillor James. Anything else from other colleagues regarding the weekly briefing reports? There being none, I note that we're now at the end of our omnibus items. Can I please have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Second, Councillor Goyne. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving now on to item 5, public question time. There is a question from Mr Bradley Walker of Howrah. CEO to provide the answer, please.
Thank you, Mayor. We have two questions tonight from Mr Walker. The first question reads as follows. It relates to weed management in relation to a development in Raleigh Court in Howrah. The question is, on the 3rd of March 2022, Council were first alerted to a developer's likely unpermitted works behind Raleigh Court, Howrah. These works did not appear to be done with any weed management efforts and has resulted in a huge amount of weeds, including serrated tussock, growing on the site. These weeds have spread onto many adjacent residential properties, including my own, and also onto adjacent council and private owners' land that holds a current conservation covenant and was basically serrated tussock free. Spring is upon us and these weeds are soon to be spread further off-site. What measures have council taken since the 3rd of March 2022 to deal with this site? The answer to that question is that the works in question were undertaken in accordance with the approved weed and hygiene management plan for that stage of the development in 2020. Following a review of audit reports, Council accepted that the works were undertaken in accordance with the approved plan. monitoring and follow-up control of several declared weeds, including serrated tussock, that have re-established on the site since that time, was not covered by the plan for those stages under the permit, as it is a balanced lot. It is instead the responsibility of the landowner under the Biosecurity Act 2019 to manage declared weeds on their land. Council's weeds planning officer has recently inspected the area in question and has provided notification to the owner to undertake primary control of the serrated tussock and other declared weeds that have established on the site. Council has received assurance from the owner that weed control works on the balance lot will be undertaken. Council will monitor the situation and manage any ongoing compliance under the Biosecurity Act in accordance with our usual processes for prioritisation and management of weeds on private land. Second question from Mr Walker relates to hard waste collection. The question reads, the last hard waste collection Clarence City Council provided ratepayers took place over the summer period 2022-23. Can Council provide details of how many households use this service and the total cost to Council to provide the last collection? The answer to that question is that accurate data on household participation was unable to be captured during the suburb-by-suburb hard waste collection model previously provided in Clarence. The 22-23 program cost Council approximately $800,000. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. Moving now on to questions without notice. Are there any questions from the gallery this evening? Thank you, sir. Your name and suburb, please.
Bradley Walker of Para. Council opened the Clarence Mountain Bike Park in the Leman Ranges in 2009. Since then, the council have maintained and added significant infrastructure at this mountain bike park. It's my understanding that the majority of this land, that the mountain bike park is, that it is owned by State Growth and the Parks and Wildlife. Can the council provide how much they have spent to date on this mountain bike park and how council calculate the community benefit and the return on this outlay?
Mr Walker, thank you. We'll take that one on notice because there's obviously, as you referred to, there's been several iterations and sort of investments over that period of time. So we'll take that on notice and come back to you in writing. And it'll be in the minutes of the next council meeting as well. Thank you. Are there any other questions from the gallery this evening? Right, there being none, we now move on to deputations. Are there any deputations, CEO?
Thank you, Mayor. We have one deputation tonight from Dr Bruce Englefield in relation to the planning application for 72 Esplanade in Rose Bay.
Good evening, Dr Englefield. Please, the microphone is yours. You have 3 minutes, sir, and in interest of fairness, I'll strictly enforce that rule. But the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Firstly, I would like to thank all councillors who have offered advice or attended the site for their helpful input. I will now get straight to the nub of the problem. It seems from the Planning Department's report that all the issues raised by the residents can be completely dismissed as long as the proposed development meets the building envelope as described in the Tasmanian planning scheme. I understand how councillors' ability to represent their residents is strictly limited by a planning scheme that seems to deny natural justice or even a fair go to us oldies. For this reason, I focused on suggesting that the proposed development does not meet the building envelope. I produced drawings based on data I took on site. These convinced me I was correct in stating Unit 2 would be too high and that Unit 1 would be over the 8.5 metres allowed. However, I am not a professional surveyor, builder or architect, so my findings could be dismissed. In the very limited time available, I managed to engage a builder surveyor and a land surveyor. Their reports indicate not only that my data is correct, but also that the units do not marginally or comprehensively comply depending upon where measurements are taken. The experts I engaged came on site to take definitive measurements. To my knowledge, no surveyors acting for the developer asked permission to take measurements either on my site or at number 72. The planning scheme states the measurements are to be taken at existing ground level. Well, this might account for the discrepancies raised. This then brings into play that the proposed development will completely shadow my solar panels, roof light, sunroom, kitchen and dining room windows in the winter months. It will also impinge on our private spaces and privacy at both the rear and front of our home all year. It will protrude well beyond the established setback of the existing street dwellings and will be the only two-storey dwellings on our part of the esplanade. I hope I will have established sufficient doubt for the councillors to refuse this application. Then, if appealed, there will be time for full surveys to be undertaken. Hopefully, a compromise can then be reached, the simplest being to make this development single-storey, which I believe will be welcomed by all residents and might provide the same pecuniary advantage in rates to the council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Englefield. Is that it, sir? Well, thank you. We now move on to item 7, which is Planning Authority matters, and I advise that Council now intends to act as a planning authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act of 1993. 7.1, which is a planning scheme amendment, rezone from rural zone to general residential zone, 21 Matapo Street in Risdon Vale. Is there a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Mulder, thank you. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Mulder.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Unlike some others we're going to discuss tonight, this is a fairly straightforward one, and we welcome the expansion of the residential area in this particular zone. There are some issues in relation to water and flooding, but these are not insurmountable. It's a case of this is the kind of development that we actually really need. It's the suburban block, it's the single premises with the backyard so our kids can learn to play cricket, and it's that classic suburban. And I'll just make a point that we all talk about urban growth boundaries and we all talk about this and that and the other. There's a difference between suburban and urban. And we make a huge mistake, and it's in the planning scheme. It doesn't talk about suburban growth boundaries, it talks about urban growth boundaries. We are convoluting high density development with suburban development, and the two are different. So, all I can say is that I encourage this sort of development where you have backyards, where you have access, and where we gradually start to integrate the suburbs of Geilston Bay with Risdon Vale, and therefore create the connections and start to remove some of the social isolation that occurs in these greenfield social housing estates. And before we get too carried away about Risdon Vale being lower socioeconomic, it was actually established to provide the workforce for what is now the Near Star zinc smelters, and that's why there was a ferry running across the road all the time. It was once the highest members of attendees at the Risdon Vale primary school, and it was once one of the better socioeconomic status because everyone there had a job. They were associated with the zinc works. So, it's a thing that has, as the zinc works has modernised and declined, and we've seen a lot of story in the media lately about, saving the 500 jobs. This place used to employ 3,000, and that was the time that Risdon Vale was built to provide the housing estate. But this particular project is an opportunity to extend that suburban growth boundary and create livable houses for the people of Clarence.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't have a lot to add. Councillor Mulder has given quite a good
account. As councillors would be aware, this isn't something new. This is something that was mooted before the urban growth boundary adjustment was made and has now come back to council. And of course, this is about sending reports back to the Planning Commission to deal with the amendment requests. So I also share in Councillor Mulder's welcoming of this particular proposal. I think it will be a good value add down the track, taking into consideration, as this report does, the issues that have been raised, and mainly those around water flows, which I also concur would be able to be more appropriately addressed when it gets to that stage through the process in the future. So look forward to seeing the end result in the fullness of time, and pleased to support the recommendation before us.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other colleagues wishing to make a contribution? There being none, you probably don't need a right of reply, Councillor Mulder. Well, it's the first time for everything. I'll put the motion as the recommendation. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much, colleagues. Moving now on to item 7.2, which is a planning application for 72 Esplanade Rose Bay, demolition and 2 multiple dwellings. Councillor James, you've circulated an alternate motion. Do you have a seconder for that? Is there a seconder for Councillor James's motion? There being none, that lapses. Is there a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Mulder. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hume, thank you. Councillor Mulder.
Mr Mayor, with some reluctance, and I'm let me start at the outset. I do not intend to support the motion, even though I'm moving it. It's a procedural matter, and this is an issue where this rush to reduce the time council had to assess applications to 42 days, the shortest period in the country, which is why it's referred to as our planning scheme is referred to as a developer's picnic. They have months and sometimes years to develop their plans, to develop their, all the stuff that goes with a planning application. Then it hits council. Our staff have 6 weeks to fully assess the program, to take account, and they don't have time to go out and get alternative advice about the planning and the drawings and the diagrams and all the things that go with it. So what they have to do is they have to assess it, given the timeframes, on what they've got. Neither is there the capacity for us to defer it pending further investigations. As late as 4:30 this afternoon, we got an email with a professional report that said that the plans submitted were wrong, that the building envelope was there. Now, we don't have time in the space of an hour and a half to develop an alternative motion. First of all, we have to check that the consultants have got it right, that the other opinion is right. Then we've got to go through the whole process of assessing that against the building plans and then making up a decision about whether, if it doesn't meet the acceptable solutions, then there's a whole phalanx of stuff about the performance criteria which allow us to extend it. We just don't have the time. This is a failure of process. It's a failure of process imposed upon us by a state minister whose signature appears on the planning scheme. It's not that of the mayor or our CEO or the chief of planning. It's the minister who sets up this process and sets up this thing. Now, the reason we can't vote for this tonight is because we haven't got that capacity to arrange assessment on the new material provided to us this evening. So the best thing we can do, tactically, is to vote against this motion tonight, and in the absence of an alternate, it will then be approved, but we will have sent a message that we don't like being boxed into this position where we have to support a development and it'll go to an appeal. And that appeal will then be a position where this evidence, as we heard tonight, can be assessed, can be delivered and can be checked by the Planning Commission, by the TASCAT, the Appeals Tribunal, where we will be able to have a look at this. So my recommendation is that we actually vote this down to allow the developer to lodge his appeal, and then we have time to probably have this assessed by the experts.
Thank you, Councillor Mould. Before I call on the seconder, I'll just make a point that if this is not if this motion is not successful this evening, then we haven't made a decision. The officers will then write to the developer seeking an extension of time, and if that isn't granted, it'll then be determined under delegation as per the recommendation of the officers. So that's not to take away from anything you said then, Councillor Mould, just to be very clear. So everyone in the chamber and in the gallery and at home is aware of what may occur here. But Councillor Hume.
And yes, what the Mayor's outlined in terms of the process, I think, you know, in these situations you would expect that given the officers have recommended for approval, it's more likely than not that the developer would refuse that extension of time, knowing that they would likely act in accordance with their recommendation, in fact almost certainly act in accordance with their recommendation. So I think we can safely say that regardless of whether this motion to support the officer's recommendation succeeds or fails, this development's going to receive approval prior to, and I guess it's almost certain that there'll be an appeal, and this is going to get heard in the tribunal where the expert evidence will be able to be heard. That doesn't mean that we can't, as councillors and members of a planning authority, try and make our best efforts, and I accept everything Councillor Mould has said about the lack of time we've had to consider the information available, but our best efforts to make a judgment about whether this development complies with the scheme. I met with the Englefields and I've had a look at the site. I can absolutely appreciate their frustrations. I would not want, if I had a sunroom where I like to relax and enjoy the sun in the morning, if I had solar panels, I would not want them to be overshadowed during a large portion of the day. Clearly there are going to be amenity impacts on them. But in terms of assessing those impacts under a scheme which, as Councillor Mould has pointed out, has been approved by the Minister, a scheme which we may not necessarily be happy with, it all comes down to the question of does it meet the acceptable solution in terms of the building envelope. I've given this a lot of consideration, the evidence that's been presented, and I am satisfied that it does meet the building envelope. I understand that we have a couple of competing sets of expert information, but I also take the advice of our planners that the evidence presented from Dr. Englefield's surveyor doesn't change the position. It's my understanding that there are a couple of pieces of survey data that line up in terms of state surveys and the surveys provided by the developer's surveyor, and that the natural ground level is taken from the development side, and that it is taken at the time that the scheme was established. I could be corrected if I've got that wrong, but I've given this a lot of consideration, and I still don't feel that I have any information to effectively rebut the fact that this development fits within the building envelope. So I will be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hume. Any other colleagues wishing to enter the debate? Councillor James and then the Deputy Mayor. Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry, Councillor. No, Councillor, you have the call. Thank you.
It is disappointing, but then again, that's local government politics, and that's the way we look at each of these issues on its merits or otherwise. I've always been of the view that if there's an idea or something that needs to be promoted or discussed, then it ought to have an airing within this chamber, and it's disappointing that not one of my colleagues even rose to second the motion and then obviously vote against it, as they have every right to do so in the circumstances. So let's look at this in its perspective. The simple fact of the matter is there is some doubt about the plans. In the recommendation that's been listed for consideration, it says at A1 that the application be approved subject to the following conditions and advice. 1, general AP1 endorsed plans. So what we're saying here is that the endorsed plans are correct. And that is, if the motion is carried, then by the very nature of this motion, that is what is going to be carried if that is the way the decision is made in this place. There has been some doubt about that. There has been a planner who has actually come out, Tony Cooper from AJ&R Cooper Building, to say that in his memo, and I think we have received this actual memorandum from Bruce Englefield today, and that it says is that the height difference at the rear of block for proposed new dwelling location from the existing ground level is 1.010 metre, which is basically in support of Bruce Englefield's submission, in which he said that was...
Dr Inglefield, thank you.
Your pardon?
It's Dr Inglefield. Not first name, it's Dr Inglefield.
Oh, thank you. Okay, yes.
Councillor.
Certainly, yes. I have every respect for Dr Bruce. And I've spent hours on the phone.
Is clicking.
Talking. Yeah, I know it is. Thanks. So, at the end of the day, there is discretion in this particular application. And if it hadn't been for the number of representatives coming forward, then it may not have been obviously considered in this place, and therefore it would have gone through under that under the officer's approval as part of the process. There is a couple of issues here that I believe should have been discussed as part of my motion, and that is that the driveway works and front portion of proposed Unit 1 are located within the Coastal Protection Area overlay. So there is a matter there that has come to the officer's recommendation that it is not in accordance with the Natural Assets Code, clause 7.6.1, and also it's stated here under the Coastal Erosion Hazard Code, it's not satisfied that the proposal includes buildings and works partially within a high coastal hazard area. Now again, there's been reports that have been done by the consultants to say that this is not a problem because of the fact that it's has been addressed within their consultation plans, but nevertheless it is contrary to the acceptable solutions, and there is always an opportunity to be able to debate that as part of the proposal. So if this motion is carried, then there is doubt, in my opinion, that those endorsed plans are correct, and that by the very nature of us approving this recommendation, it would seem to me that we are endorsing something that in fact is, I believe, has been proven by external consultants, building surveyors and and a builder's licensing person to say that there is some element of doubt in this and therefore it should not be approved.
Thank you, Councillor James. Deputy Mayor, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I do thank Councillor James for bringing forward his alternate motion, and in speaking to this motion, I didn't support the alternative because I actually felt that had that succeeded, it would have had the potential of limiting the grounds of appeal for the Englefields, actually. So I actually feel that it would have perhaps been a disadvantage. I have a strong view that this matter will end up in the tribunal, which is probably the most appropriate place for it to go, given the situation we find ourselves in. It's not a particularly envious one, as we often lament in this place. Councillor Mulder's detailed a range of the difficulties that we have been faced with, that the community members making representations have been faced with around the 42-day rule, around the inability to engage the necessary experts to respond within a very short time frame. We all know the very limited time we have to then assess the information before us. But I do think that there is no doubt that there are discrepancies that have been identified. There is a doubt cast over some of the information that's been put before us, but we can do nothing but assess the information on that which is available to us at the time of the decision. That doesn't mean that that will be subsequently upheld. That provides that's what the tribunal is actually there for, to enable these types of robust disagreements and the presentation of evidence to dispute this. And Councillor James talked about, we're taking this as that it's correct. Well, we're taking it that we believe it's correct at the time we make the decision. It doesn't mean that we don't think that other information will come forward. And it has come forward this afternoon to a degree, but not to the extent where I feel comfortable in doing a full refusal, but it doesn't mean that won't eventuate, and that's it. We don't have the capacity to deal with that now and ask for conditions that require extra information now. We've got a yes or no decision before us, which is all we can exercise. So making sure that we can provide all parties with the greatest opportunity to explore the difficulties and the issues moving forward is the most appropriate decision that we can make, given all the concerns that many of us have worked hard to get our head around and come to the fairest and most reasonable decision that we can this evening. And my view is I'd love to see there be a remapping. I know really it's probably going to come down to where the boundary is actually determined, because that's probably not actually fully concreted at the moment when you look at both sides. So that may or may not severely change how the assessment of this works. And we don't have that before us at the moment. So that is where I think it will turn in the tribunal, on where the boundary is actually fully determined on a proper remap, and then all the other things will flow from that. So as much as it pains me that we can't actually do anything other than support the officer's recommendation at the moment, there are the very good reasons as to why our planning system, I've said it many times, we don't have the tools we need. It's been eroded over years. I'd like to see some greater flexibilities returned for common sense solutions to be available to councils for their communities and for those putting forward DAs. Hope the Planning Minister has a relook at these things. We can certainly continue to advocate for them in the capacity that we have, because there sure is a lot of difficulties for us, and we see it on a regular basis. So again, I thank those colleagues who put in a lot of work on this issue. I thank Dr Englefield and Mrs Englefield for their time, and the professionals that also provided advice, and I'll be supporting the officer recommendation on the basis of the comments that I've already made.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for everything that you've just outlined there, which is pretty much what I've noted here, except that I can't support it on principle. And there's just too much late information coming through. I'm still confused by the natural ground level with the planning scheme previously, how it sits now. I am so sorry to the Inglefields that you've been caught up in this time frame, as well as Deputy Mayor alluded to. I'm sure either way this is going to go to appeal, but in principle and common sense, I hope one day does prevail, but I cannot support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Goyne, please.
Thank you to all my colleagues for weighing this matter so thoroughly. There's probably not a lot that I can add that hasn't already been said, except for I wanted to thank Dr. Englefield for the lengths that he has gone to be able to articulate and visually demonstrate his concerns. I know I speak for myself, but I am not an engineer or a planner, or I was simply elected on being able to present my community's views. And what he's shown here is that he has spoken up and he has highlighted a concern in his area of his community, which just happens to be a development next door to him. And by approaching us, we have jiggled and wiggled and tried everything and written alternatives and spoken with staff, all since last week in the time frame that we can. And I'm truly grateful for the time and effort that he's come to present this to us, because it is his effort in speaking up for the people around him that has actually brought us to this point. And I also am not comfortable supporting or refusing, so I will be doing something rare and I'll be abstaining from voting tonight.
Any other colleagues wishing to enter the debate? Councillor Hunter, please.
Yes, I have a question, if you could please have confirmed for me. If this does get approved this evening and it goes to the tribunal and it is the proponent is correct or wins the appeal process, is it council who pays the costs of the tribunal?
Thank you. Mr Maher, please.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hunter, for the question. Costs aren't automatically awarded except when council fails to determine application within a period of time. So the process of the tribunal awarding costs, they look at whether or not matters were reasonably raised and reasonably discussed, or whether people were frivolous or vexatious. So it's a matter for the tribunal, but if people go in there with a reasonable position to discuss, then the normal process or the standard base point is that all parties pay their own costs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunter. Councillor Warren, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm not in a position to support this evening. There was a flurry of emails very late this afternoon, which I only saw when I sat down this evening at the chamber. I think one of those came in at 3 minutes past 5. So I'm not in possession of all the information. There is some confusion, so I don't feel that I can, in all honesty, support the recommendation that's before us until I have more time with that information.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Any other colleagues wishing to speak to this? I don't think there's many opportunities for anyone. Councillor Mulder, reply, please.
An interesting point is raised here that's been discussed, and as a somewhat veteran of planning matters over a long time, I was always of the view that natural ground level was the basis for all these height determinations. But during the course of this, and thanks to Dr. Englefield, I've just discovered that in clause 9A3B, the word existing ground level is the base point from which measurements are made. Now, either that's a drafting error or it's something that's changed that I was unaware of, but then I wasn't here when that planning scheme went through. So I just have a feeling that I may not be the only one who has mistaken what the race reference point now is in terms of height. So in that basis, and I think that explains an awful lot of the discrepancies between what we're measuring and where we're measuring. And if you have a look at diagram 17, it's interesting to note that the west elevation of this particular building, which is where the contentious point is that the height from which the 45-degree angle for the building envelope is taken is actually 3 metres above actual ground level and just clips the top of the building. So any variation in that, you suddenly get outside the building envelope. And then the performance criteria kick in about bulk and scales, solar access and all the rest of those things. And as we've heard tonight, if this turns out to be fractionally inside the building envelope, then all those issues and considerations come into play. And it's that thing. There's the issue about, I won't go into the coastal zones because that's all been done and done. But supporting the officer's recommendation is not essential to this process. I think we can send a long, clear, loud message to those who actually control the planning authority, and it ain't us, that the processes and the time frames where you get this conflicting information doesn't do us justice. And we can send a message by voting against this proposal, and it will then go into the council officers seeking, as the Mayor pointed out, the approvals, and if they're not given, and then we end up in the tribunal. And that is the place where the new information, it's the only place where we have the new information to come forward. So I urge members to send the message.
Thank you, Councillor Moulder. So, colleagues, 7.2 is a recommendation for approval for a planning application for 72 Esplanade Rose Bay, demolition and 2 multiple dwellings be approved, subject to conditions and advice. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? One abstention. So not carried. Lost, yes, thank you. So I appreciate that there might be some people in the gallery who are just here for this item. We won't be offended if you leave us now. You're more than welcome to stay. It's riveting stuff, but thank you for your attendance this evening. Just again, to reconfirm what I said earlier with regards to the process, a decision hasn't been made, so this will now go to the officers to then make their determination. Thank you all very much. Good night. Right, colleagues, Council now concludes its deliberations of the Planning Authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act of 1993. Moving on now to item number 8, which there are no items under number 8. There are no items under item number 9. We might all make it home in time for Sarah Ferguson. Item number 10, councillor question time. There are no questions on notice. Moving down to and answers to questions without notice previous council meeting as listed in the agenda. Questions without notice. Are there any questions for the floor this evening, starting with Councillor Kennedy? Councillor Warren? Councillor Tarko? Councillor Goyne?
I have a list. I've been ticking them off, deciding what I was going to talk about. So tonight's theme is going to be car parking. I've spent a lot of time in the Belrive Quay lately, and I noticed there is a lot of 15-minute car parks that are usually vacant. Apart from the fact that not a lot in the Belrive Quay area can probably be done in 15 minutes, can I ask how many of those have been adjusted from longer durations to 15 minutes when we've had the changes to the new Belrive Quay area?
Thank you, Councillor Goyne. Ms Moore?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I might have to take that on notice just to get the detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Goyne, your second question, please.
Again, on car parking, I've noticed that the Bayview Park consultation plan has come out, thanks to the team, because it's been eagerly awaited by my community. I noticed a significant reduction in car parks, and I've been discussing with the Clifton Surf Lifesaving Club particularly that they have anywhere from 25 cars on a Saturday morning from 7:30 till 10. Are the plans that have been advertised set in stone, apart from the minor adjustments for what parts of play equipment we choose, or is it something that can be renegotiated at this late stage?
Thank you. Ms Moore, is that one for you?
Yes, it is for me, Mayor.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to think. I think I may have to take that one on notice as well, particularly in relation to the surf club's use of the space, because I wasn't aware that that was an area used by them. So I'll... My initial feedback or response would be that my understanding is that the park is actually considered to be a local park, and from that point of view, most of the users would be expected to be walking to and from rather than parking. So that's sort of the basis for the current planning arrangement, or parking arrangement, sorry. But I will confirm.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ms.
Thank you.
No. Ms. Moore will come back to you, Councillor Gordon. Yeah, thank you. Councillor James.
Thank you. My first question is in relation to the Kangaroo Bay, Shambroad and the buyback of the land by council. It's my understanding that there's going to be there is a delay in the matter going before the Supreme Court, and I know we can't divulge too much about the legal process, but is it my understanding that there is going to be a further delay in relation to going before the Supreme Court, and that Shambroad has sought an extension of time to take it further into the new year?
Thank you, Councillor James. CEO or Ms Shea? CEO.
Thank you. I might field that question. Thanks, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor James. We're obviously going through the various processes of the court at the moment. There have been some delays on the Shambroad side. Those are being addressed by our council, and at this stage we don't have a date for the hearing, but we are anticipating at this stage now that it'll be early in 2026.
Second question, Councillor James.
The other question is related to the Rosny Mall. There appears to be, and I'm trying to be very careful in the way in which I approach this question, to a lot of young people that are actually trashing the area during the day. They are... It's just becoming an absolute pigsty as far as people trying to find a seat in one of those enclosures waiting for the bus. I know it's difficult to be able to do anything about this, but it's council's mall. It's ours. We pay for any damage that's been done, and there's been a lot of damage done to those glass barriers.
James, I'll ask you a question.
Yeah, well, the question is, can we do anything about this behaviour that's in the mall, and as to whether or not there is some ways in which the police can be involved?
James. It's not here to come in grandstand at question time. It's something we're acutely aware of. We work very closely with Taspol, work very closely with Eastlands, and Miss Moore and her team, and they're regularly repairing damage, and also teams go through and clean it regularly as well. I don't think anyone here disagrees with the basis of your question at all. It's something we're all acutely aware of, and the officers do what they can. I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but last year I think it's in the vicinity of $250,000 to replace the perspex, the glass, etc., around those bus shelters. So it is unfortunate. It is not something that any of us want to see occur. We're doing our level best to address it. So it comes down to resourcing, like all these things do, and that's something that will then be an item for discussion come budget time as well, to provide further resources. So, Ms Moore, no, you've had your two questions. Sit down, Councillor James. Sit down, Councillor James. Sit down, Councillor James. Sit down, Councillor James.
The way in which you answered and made it
Councillor James. Councillor James.
Loud and insensitive remarks.
Councillor James, take your seat now. You do that again, you'll leave the chamber. I will not have you come in here grandstand. No. Councillor James, there's clearly no respect. You do not come in here and treat the chair like that. Do I make myself clear? Do I make myself clear? You do not talk over the chair. You do it again, you'll be sent out. Thank you. Now, Ms Moore, is there anything else you'd like to add? No, Councillor James. Yes, you may leave, and do not come back. Well then, sit down and act like an adult.
I will decide when I leave.
Sit down and act like an adult. I'll not have you come in here acting like that.
The councillor's expectation.
Sit down, Councillor Mulder. Councillor James. No, sorry, Councillor Mulder.
I have a point of order.
No, you don't. Thank you. So, Councillor James, that's enough.
How do you know?
So, Miss Moore, do you have anything else you'd like to add to the question, to the answer?
Through you, Mayor, I think particularly in relation to behaviour, I would probably defer to Ms Coburn, but it may well be worth taking it on notice.
Thank you.
To provide a response. Sorry,
could we
thank you.
CEO, thank you, Ms Moore, organise a coordinated response, both Ms Coburn, Ms Moore's team, anything else you'd like to add as well, particularly with our meetings with TASPOL and the work that we do there.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Councillor Hume.
I have two questions. They do relate to matters on which councillors have been briefed, but I thought I'd ask the questions anyway so that we could put some information on the public record. The first relates to the RTI application for the Department of State Growth's assessment in relation to their flawed decision about the high performance centre location. I understand that they're now out of time, and I just interested to know what the next steps are.
Thank you, Councillor Hume. CEO, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Hume. As briefed, the department did get an extension of time, and they have not delivered the documents requested, and I have requested that the Mayor provide me with some time tonight to discuss that with councillors in closed meeting.
Thank you, CEO. Second question, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, CEO, for his answer. The other one relates to there is an answer on notice in the agenda to my question about the council's advocacy on restrictive covenants that are discriminatory against people on the basis of their financial circumstances. I understand there is a further update to that, and I'd just like to hear what that further update is.
Thank you, Councillor Hume. CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, thanks for the question, Councillor Hume. As circulated today via email to councillors, we received an update from LGAT. Essentially, the matter was referred to the Land Titles Office to look at options. Cutting a long story short, the government hasn't responded yet in respect to the issue of restricted covenants. So LGAT will be pursuing that with the Land Titles Office and also with Minister Vincent on behalf of local government, or as local government minister.
Thank you, CEO. Councillor Hunter. Councillor Mulder.
My question relates to the car park between Kangaroo Bay Boulevard and the parking arrangements at the Bellerive Yacht Club, an area which is being used and council has taken over as a car park and the access there. I have previously arranged for this, and it took some time because of the Shambroad issue, for the car park to be to the potholes. But on August the 22nd, I submitted an elected member's request, complete with photos, requesting that this pothole-ridden connection, which is actually, to use your words, Mr Mayor, a jewel in the crown of the Clarence both is. And here we have this pothole-ridden road, and I've asked that it be part of a regular maintenance program, as we did with Begonia Street, so that we don't have to get in every time. I submitted that request on August the 22nd. It didn't appear in the elected member's request. A week later, I submitted it again, saying it hadn't appeared in the elected member's request. It still hasn't appeared in the elected member's request. But the biggest thing is the potholes are still there. You know, it really is an absolute disgrace.
So your question, Councillor Mulder.
My question is can we fix the thing?
Thank you. Ms Moore.
Through you, Mayor, we are aware of the potholes in the access driveway to the car park, and we're not taking the opportunity to completely regrade the access road. However, we will be undertaking repairs as the potholes, to repair the potholes.
Thank you, Ms Moore. Councillor Mulder, your second question?
It's a supplementary.
No, this is your second question.
Is the grading going to start tomorrow?
Thank you. Ms Moore?
Through you, Mayor, I'll have to clarify when the work order is going to be actioned. We have, as I said, the potholes are going to be repaired and we are aware of the issue.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just have my first question relates to the Wentworth Park Master Plan. I understand that's something that will be progressing hopefully later this year, and I just wondered if we could have an update on the proposed timeline for that.
Ms Moore, thank you.
Through you, Mayor, we'll have to take that one on notice. Thanks.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Given the recent media we've seen about the VFL in Tasmania and subsequent to our visit from Stadiums Tasmania in relation to Bellerive Oval, I just wondered, has Council had any further contact from the workshop that we were part of from either State Growth or Stadiums Tasmania in relation to Bellerive Oval since that time?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. CEO, one for you.
Thank you through you, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor. In relation to State Growth, there has been no contact. In relation to Stadiums Tasmania, we provided a briefing to Stadiums Tasmania following the workshop on some of the issues that were raised, and that's the total of action so far.
Thank you, CEO. Well, I'll now call for a motion to move into closed meeting. Move Councillor Warren, seconded Councillor Goyne. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. So thank you to those members of the public who attended in person this evening, as well as those joining us via the live stream. Please end the live stream. We've now going to close meeting, so I will have to say goodnight to you in the back of the stalls there. So thank you very much.